That is our spiritual practice when we take the movement that we are called to move from the personal or the individual into expressing in the collective and the community on a broader level, to expanding, and not even just to the community, but to our external lives. So if the kingdom of God is within us, and that is wholeness, that is abundance, that is the divine blueprint, then when we are not activating and living in accordance with this divine blueprint, we are missing the mark. In scripture, the word for missing the mark is sin. A lot of times we think of the word sin and it's like, oh, that's awful, that's old school, I don't want to go there again, right? Many people have been beaten over the head with the idea of sin. You're a sinner, you're bad, you're a sinner. Well, what if sin was just missing the mark? Don't we miss the mark kind of a lot, right? We miss the mark with ourselves in our highest potential. We miss the mark in relationships. We miss the mark in bringing the kingdom, the queendom, the allness out into expression. I was thinking this week with Earth Day being right here, I was thinking about how when I was growing up, we would teach kids to pick up any trash they see, right? Do you remember this? If you're a kid and you see trash, you're taught to pick it up. Don't pass by it, pick it up. Well, I've had a little challenge with that lately with my little one, because what I don't want is every single time she's outside for her to be constantly picking up everyone's garbage and trash, because guess what? It's not a little thing here and there anymore. Do you notice that? Have you gone on a hike in the woods or to a park or to a beach, wherever it is that you go, and have you noticed that if you were to pick up every little piece of trash that you saw, or every little cigarette butt, that you would be, I think I just said, anyway, you would be, we'll talk about that later. You would be picking up every little piece of trash, and that would be your whole experience, wouldn't it? That would be your whole experience. So we need to teach action, and we need to teach accountability, but we also, at the top of everything, we need to teach consciousness. We need to teach consciousness. I was with a friend and we were having a little snack at picnic tables out at a kind of picnic grounds area, and had just finished scooping out an avocado, sharing an avocado. And I got the second half of my avocado, you know, just the shell, and I put it aside with my little glass package and put it in there. And my friend took that little piece and just tossed it onto the ground by the picnic area. Well, totally biodegradable, an avocado sleeve, what do you call that outside? An avocado skin, totally biodegradable. But I thought to myself, why didn't I throw mine out there? And I thought, let me just share, you know, let me just share why I didn't, because I did think about it. I thought about tossing it out there because it's biodegradable. And we're talking just in a field right outside of the picnic area, right? So there's the cement block where the picnic table is, and then there's the grass. Now, it would have been different if it had been tossed into the woods, not by the trail. But I thought to myself, what is it that made me stop rather than throwing it out there, even when it's not a cigarette butt, it's not a piece of trash, right? And I thought to myself, it's because I always now, because of consciousness and because of a spiritual practice, I ask myself this question. I ask myself this as many times as I can be aware to ask the question, how would it be if everyone did this? How would it be if everyone did this? Not is this right or wrong? Not is this going to create a mess? But how would it be if everyone who sat right here did this? And if you look at it like that, in my situation, if everyone did that, every time someone came to sit at this bench, everyone did that, there would be a banana peel, there would be breadcrumbs, there would be avocado skins, there would be pistachio shells, there would be a whole pile of biodegradable stuff that then all of the kids and all of the individuals, all of the families that are coming by for their hike get to trample through on the way to the trails. See, when we engage our consciousness and when we ask for higher ways of being, we are guided to higher ways of bringing the kingdom from within to outside of us. When we ask for the blueprints, we ask for the higher questions. We're given not the questions that can help upgrade us in moments, but we're given the questions that lead us into transformational living and lead us into expansions in consciousness, so that we can be more aligned with our intentions. So many of us have ideas and intentions that we want to hold or to demonstrate or to manifest, but we lack all of the awareness needed for alignment with the actions and the activities that will produce those results. So I was hiking this week on this trail by this picnic area. And as I was hiking on this trail, and I've done it a few times now, I say to myself every time, I can't believe I didn't know this trail was here. I can't believe I didn't know this trail was here. Right here, right across the street from my house, an absolutely gorgeous hiking trail. Incredible loops and twists and turns and different choices and different paths, and not just walking for 20 minutes, but you can walk for 2 hours easily without seeing the same thing, going all around a lake. And I have lived here. This is going to get embarrassing, but I share this story because it has a key and a gift for us. I have lived here for 10 years. And you want to know what I've said for 10 years? How in the world do I live across from a gorgeous lake and there's no hiking trail? How could I be this close to all this beauty and no one thought to put a trail around the lake? Come on, a trail around the lake. I've been kayaking on this lake. I've watched the moon from this lake. I've gone on a hiking trail on the other side of the lake that just goes in and out. But how is there no trail that just goes along the lake? There is. And there was for 10 years. For 10 years, I've lived across the street from a gorgeous hiking trail. For 10 years, I've been going, why not? Something's missing. It's not good enough. How is it not there? Why don't people think about this? If the world would just then get in my car and drive off to some trail that doesn't have trees around it, that's not exactly what I love. When all the while, right here, for 10 years, right across the street, is a ridiculously gorgeous hiking trail. So let's ask ourselves the question today. What is in the midst of us that we have failed to discover? What is in the midst of us that we have failed to discover? What are we in the midst of that we have failed to see? What are we in the midst of? What are we swimming in? What have we lived with for 10 years unknowingly? And why have we not seen it? Or an even better question is, how can we turn that around and have eyes that see? How can we become more aware? Do we realize and recognize that we have everything we need in order to navigate what is in front of us? We have everything we need to navigate what is before us. We have everything we need to discover that the kingdom is not only within, that it is surrounding us. that because of this spiritual principle, that the dimension of God exists within, and we are aspects of that creation, we are emanations of this Godness, then it serves to reason that so too is that infinite expression, that divine blueprint surrounding and around us, nourishing, nurturing us, there waiting to be discovered. This is the teaching, this is the principle. Unity Minister Eric Butterworth said in the book, Life is for Living, he said, Jesus did not work miracles in the sense that he set aside the law. Hear that again. This is not traditional Christianity. This is metaphysical, practical spirituality that includes but transcends religion. Jesus did not work miracles in the sense that he set aside the law. If he did these things, you can do them because the potential for fulfilling the law is within you. The potential for fulfilling the law is within each one of us. It is right here. We have an opportunity in every moment to align with the fullness of life, to align with our highest visions, to align with the highest practices, not just in our own lives, but to release the toxicity within us and around us, to let go of outdated and destructive and biased systems, to get into integrity with co-creating a world that works for all. So I took this friend on this hike. I took this friend on, and I've taken a few friends since then. And it's I think it's becoming my new thing to just delight someone with this. Oh my gosh, I didn't know this was here. So I take a friend on this hike, and he stops about halfway through and he says to me, all of those times we've been here and we never knew this was right here. Like all of these times we've been within feet of this and we had no idea. In fact, from one lookout point, when you're standing at the ledge looking at the lake, you can see the little jetty, the little point that comes out where I would put in my kayak. You can actually see it if you go down the trail enough. You can see the little point where I would put my kayak into the water. So they could see me, but I couldn't see them. Right around the corner, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't access it. I didn't know it was there. Metaphysically, water represents the realm of ideas. Anyone ever done a night dive? If you've ever gone night diving, I know Paul Summers and Kathy Summers are probably going, oh yeah. If you've ever done a night dive, well, it might reframe your idea of comfort while you're swimming in the ocean. But if you've ever done a night dive, at night, the ocean just comes alive. And it is like, there's a lot down here. How is there so much down here? How is there so much down here? Whoa, it is mind-blowing. It is mind-blowing. This is what the master teacher kept speaking to. This is the lesson that kept coming up over and over again. Have eyes to see, have ears to hear. Have a heart that can sense it and feel it. It's been here all along. We have the opportunity to align with our visions. I got a text this week from one of our beloved community members, and it said this. It came with two pictures, one of a beautiful baby in a high chair and another one of this individual looking up and having the baby right there and just like goo goo gaga together in heaven. And it came with these words, dreams and miracles do come true if we but take a minute to realize that they were there all along. And it ended with, I'm loving my little great nephew. Principle in action. I have often spoken to the idea that there is a portal, and that when we find these things, it is a great refresher to our memories, to our ideas, to our imagination, that there is so much around us. You never know. I say on Sunday mornings, and I'll say it here on Facebook and on the Zoom room, and when people are watching live, you never know the person in the square next to you. You never know the person in the seat next to you. You never know that that person could have an incredible impact on your life. They could have a spiritual gift. They could be a new friend. They could tell you just a short story. You could just have one interaction that's your only interaction you ever have with them, but it will change your life. It will change the way you think, that change the way you process, change the trajectory of your experience on this planet. You never know. There is a portal in every moment, everywhere. Have you ever stayed home on a night bored thinking there's nothing to do? Maybe you've had that once or twice in the last year, thinking, there's nothing to do. And then someone reaches out and invites you to something. You walk in the door, and maybe there is a music performance that just blows your socks off, that transports you into another dimension, another place. And you sit there going, I could have been at home complaining, and instead this was available. This was right here, accessible to me. I need to remember this. I need to remember this. You know, we put our limits on ourselves all the time. We put limits on our systems. We put limits on our ideas. And sometimes we put limits on our own lives. Even spiritual community has had limits on it. You know, it used to be that it was a big problem if there was a snow day. Like, it was a big problem. It was this big fiasco. We got to decide whether or not we're going to close church, whether or not we're going to shut the doors. And if we do, all the people that aren't going to get what they were looking for that Sunday, or if we don't, all the people that are going to try to come and not be safe and not be comfortable on the road because they feel like they should come or they have to come because we're open, and well, we could do it from home, but that's just not good enough. That doesn't provide the spiritual nourishment. That's not going to make it. Well, that day is over, isn't it, friends? It's over. It's gone. Because we've figured out how to have spiritual nourishment from home. We figured out how to have community. So the same issue that we were limited by before, we're not limited by anymore. In fact, it was even a trauma financially with the budget, because what would happen if you didn't have service one Sunday? You had your membership, you had your people that were committed that would still send in an offering, even if there wasn't church, even if it was canceled. But the majority of people would think, well, if I'm not there, I'm not going to give. And so what would happen? You had 4 Sundays a month to create a budget, to pay employees, to do the activities, the events, to create the ministry. And all of a sudden, there's not one Sunday. Now we're operating on 3 quarters. 2 Sundays a month. Now we're operating on a half. There goes the budget for a year. 3 Sundays during the whole winter or tornado season. There's a month of the budget gone. And it was a big problem. It was a big issue. But guess what? Now there's a new paradigm. People get it that if I want something to stay alive, I get to source it. It's an honor to source it. It's an honor to act like this is my community, this is my home, and to take that on. And people have signed up for sustaining giving, which allows us to be able to plan, which allows us to know the value of this spiritual community. Because if people are willing to give financially, they value this. And so we're able to know by what is given that it is valued, that we're here. And we're also able to see the commitment that people have to co-creating this spiritual community. You know, there's even one spiritual community that I know of that was always kind of struggling financially. And what they decided during this last year in having virtual services was that they no longer needed to be encumbered by a building. That they, in fact, through their contributions and donations were never enough to sustain both staffing and equipment and a building. And they decided, we're changing the paradigm. We're done struggling. We're done having to fundraise for everything. Let's look at what this community really wants to sustain. Let's look at the sustaining giving, the auto give, and see what we're really committed to. And then let's get creative. Let's use our imaginations and see what we can offer and how we can thrive within that context. And they decided, we don't need a building anymore. We will do our services online, and then we'll do social meetups. We'll find places, we'll do small groups, we'll get together and we'll do activities. We'll have outdoor classes and events. And they transformed their choices around ministry. You know, Unity World Headquarters, it used to be that if you worked for them, for the most part, you were on ground. There are a whole bunch of Silent Unity employees, and they were always on ground. But what happened, a shift happened, and we were forced into situations where we had to make it work, that you could work from home or work from somewhere else or modify that work environment. And what has happened since? I've seen someone move to another state, but be able to keep their job. I've seen someone else decide that this living here in this physical location isn't fulfilling their heart's desire, but their work is valued, their consciousness is valued. And so they're moving too. And guess what? They get to keep their job. I've seen Silent Unity employees who get to work from home and are blissful about that. They're doing their prayer work as amazing as ever, and their hearts get to be nourished by the environment that they're in. A friend sent me an article recently, an article about parents, you know, the kind of issue that parents go through with work and parenting, and how to be a parent and have a full-time job. And the article was about exploring what's been working for you over the last year and negotiating and looking at how you can preserve the pieces that have expanded your quality of life. Because some people drive over an hour to get to an office. And so they have an hour at the beginning of the day, they have an hour at the end of the day, and they're away from their kids that whole time. And during this interim period of life, that is really life living itself in the now, they've discovered how it can increase the quality of life to have alternate arrangements. And so this article was all about exploring that, not letting go about that, but asking questions about things that before weren't possible. So why weren't they possible before? You know, the same thing with the kids in the school districts. Think about this with the teachers. If school districts are ready to transform, has anyone counted the days, if you have a child or a grandchild, or you just hear about it on the news, you know, it used to be you'd have 1 or 2 snow days. And I don't even think we had to make them up. You know, if they cancel school, they cancel school. We still got out of school at the end of school. But now sometimes kids are in school for another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 weeks, another month. Well, if they are ready to transform, if they're willing to transform, that doesn't need to happen anymore, does it? Because instead of calling a snow day and saying we're not having any school at all, they could move into the virtual classroom for the day and say, here we go, this is what it's going to look like now. And we don't have to tack on another day, another week, another month. But why don't we make these changes before we're pushed into them? Because we can't see the possibilities. Because we are not using the power of our imagination. Charles Fillmore talked about 12 divine faculties, 12 divine powers that are for each of us to utilize. And if we are to co-create a world that works for all, if we are to express the kingdom within, among us, and around us, we must develop these capabilities. And if we want to have a more grace-filled life, we would do well by developing before there is a major issue that presses us into making things happen. We may as well do it before a pandemic screams in our face and says, oh, you little ones of little minds, how you've been limiting yourselves, how you've been creating a cage when you are a bird and deserve the sky. Are we going to stop waiting for pain to pressure us into seeing, understanding, and saying yes to the power of imagination? Because if we are to thrive on this planet, if we are to increase our quality of life, it is ours to begin developing and working with the power of the imagination. My little one has such an incredibly developed power of imagination. She's always a reindeer, and she always lets me know I'm a reindeer. And if you try to speak to her and you're not speaking to the correct character, you might start telling Zoe the dog to do something like bark or go find their bed. And you're mistaken, because you're not talking to Zoe the dog, you're talking to the reindeer. And she even has a little friend that comes with her. And this little friend, Margaret is her name. And Margaret doesn't like loud noises. And Margaret doesn't like spicy food. There are a lot of things that Margaret doesn't like, but there are capabilities and capacities in this imagination field that we sometimes, as we grow up, we grow out of. And we forget that they are part of our inherent nature. We forget that without them, we don't always thrive. So if we want to better the environment around our social systems, around our collective nature, our communities, if we want to expand our personal lives, our individual lives, we've got to get the power of imagination. It's ours to learn how that faculty works in our lives, not just to leave it for toddlers, not just to leave it for playtime, but to recognize that we live and have our being. We move in a spiritual universe, and we have spiritual gifts, and we're here to cultivate them. Some people live in their imaginations too much, and some people not enough. It's for each one of us to look at it. Am I stuck in my imagination and I'm not even really living in the physical world because I'm just airy-fairy creating ideas? Or have I forgotten my imagination entirely? Do I remember my imagination when I'm getting stuck? Or do I just think I know the answer to things? Well, that'll never work. They'll never hire me like that. Or can I paint a picture of my vision? Can we have a conversation about it? Or do you just say, oh, there's no hiking trail around here, without asking another hiker? Or downloading the All Trails app, something that has a map of the system. The spiritual practice is like downloading the app. It's saying, I am here, I am aware, I am listening, I am willing to get the map for my life. Now, a misnomer is that sometimes people think that for the power of imagination, it means cramming in creative activities. So often, parents and individuals will just start enrolling themselves and enrolling their kids in more and more classes, right? This lesson, that lesson, so that we're going from lesson to lesson. So life is just going from teaching moment to teaching moment to teaching moment, hoping that the result will be imagination and creativity and generation. But engaging in a skill and being taught is very different from using the imagination. The imagination does not thrive when we cram things into it. The imagination thrives with space and spaciousness. The imagination thrives when we engage our spiritual practice of the absolute opposite of teaching ourselves so much and cramming it in, because you know what? The ideas that are right in front of us that we said no to in the past, that we thought couldn't work or couldn't happen, they all couldn't happen because the lack of imagination, because we took too much from the structures, the systems that we were taught needed to stay in place, needed to be in place in order for things to operate. So we need just enough stimulation to kick off the imagination process. And this is what I mean by this. Any Pinterest lovers out there? Any Pinterest lovers? So Pinterest is great because Pinterest is like getting a beginning piano lesson. It's like, here is an idea. Take a look at this, and here are some creative options. Here are some creative ways to do that, right? But if you dive into it too much and you stick to it too much and you say, well, these are their ideas, you start saying, well, I don't have a deck like that. I don't have a yard like that. I don't have a skill like that. I don't have a this like that. It'll never work because mine isn't exactly like that. If you don't use those moments as launching pads, then your creativity can actually become caged by the teaching, by the inputs. Anyone can learn something. Anyone can recreate something that's already out there. Anyone can learn an instrument, learn a dance, learn a skill. But that's not what we're here for. We're not here to just robotically regenerate what has already been. We're here to create. We're here to invent. We're here to come alive with our own visions and our own ideas. We're here to generate. So we need to give the mind space. The spiritual practice shows us that we can use something that stimulates the idea, whether it's Pinterest, or for me, if I go to a music festival and I hear other musicians, other singer-songwriters playing music, all I have to do is go to that, and then all of a sudden it'll jumpstart my own songwriting, right? You have this experience in whatever way you do, but it'll jumpstart my own creativity. Now, if I tried to just say, how can I be like them? How can I write that song? Or if I took their melody or their lyrics, we'd have a problem, wouldn't we? But if we find out what jumpstarts us into the creative field of our divine imagination, we can begin expressing from the inside out. I have an incredibly gifted nephew, and my sister and I were having this conversation this week, and we were talking about that whole jam packing time, right? And she was saying how she can't imagine if this little one had his time jam packed, because it was in the free space that was created for him that he dove into a love of mathematics, that he dove into creative piano playing and learning, that it was those times that he was given space, that he was able to find himself. And she was saying, imagine if I had done it differently, these gifts may not have been discovered in the same way, right? He may be able to enact exactly everything that someone taught him in a session, but we'd be forgoing the aliveness of being that comes when you discover something you are on fire about. When you discover that within you, there is a resource, and you learn to pull from that imaginative resource. So here's a gift for this week to give ourselves. Any place where we feel stuck, any place where we say there are no trails there, any place where we say there's no possibility there, any place where we say this is not enough, there's nothing here, there is a lack, there is a deep desire to shift something that's not working. Can we give ourselves just enough stimulation in the imaginative field to kick off a flurry in our minds and then go into the silence for the practice. Go into the silence and just allow ourselves some mental movie time. And this isn't just a movie of the mind where we just see it. We allow ourselves to feel it, to be it, to become it in that moment. Just see yourself doing whatever it is. See yourself activating it. See yourself living within that. And then let it go. And then let it go. Why let it go? Because the human mind likes to get a hammer and nails and start finding out what it needs to take apart or what it needs to hammer in to make something happen. But the spiritual mind opens a portal of allowing. And sometimes when we hammer and we nail and we strong arm things, life gets pretty hard. But when we launch things, when we launch visions, when we open our hearts, when we pray it in, we pray it up, and we use the power of our imagination, we step into a whole new spiritual reality, a whole new way of co-creation. And it is available and accessible for each one of us right here, right now, in this and in every moment. So are we willing to launch the prayers, to engage the visualization and the imagination practice, and then to lean in and to listen for the answers, the insights, the revelations? Our affirmation: right where I am, I stand in the midst of what I need. Right where I am, I stand in the midst of what I am longing for. Right where I am, it is. Show me how to align, show me the visions, show me the activity and the action. Because the kingdom is within us, it is among us, and it is in us and through us, and will activate as us when we launch the prayer, the vision, when we listen and allow the imagination, and when we lean into the gifts that are all around us. Namaste.